How long have you been waiting to just figure this out? Your coaching business, your coaching practice. And I want you to think about some things here. How many maybe programs have you bought or read or looked at? How many LinkedIn posts have you written? How many times have you rewritten your bio or redesigned your website? Maybe you've updated your niche, right? 100 times. Okay. Maybe I don't know how many you've posted or reshared or reposted. And then you still seem to have the same frustration of, I don't know where my next client will come from. And if you don't know where your next client will come from, if you have no clue and it's just you hope, that's what we're going to solve over the next 3 days and the next 9 hours. And I'm not asking these questions to make you feel bad or frustrated. I'm asking it because the answer to kind of those questions is why we're here today. And it's hopefully why we're here today, and what's why today and the next kind of few days are different. A little bit about me. I know some of you, I've recognized many of the people on this call. I've interacted with many of you. Some of you I've known for years, and I love seeing some of you. But a little bit about me. My name is Don Markland. I am the founder of Accountability Now, and we just did a little bit of evaluation on our business. We are Accountability Now is one of the top business coaching firms in North America, which I'm really thrilled about. And we're also I'm the co-owner and co-CEO of Numi.com. And we are the largest coaching marketplace in the world. We have 34,000 coaches on the marketplace. Over my career, I have built and grown 2 businesses that have had successful exits, and been involved with coaching for over a decade. And in that process, I've had kind of a front row seat that I don't believe any real trainer or certification company or LinkedIn has been able to see, because I've been able to see a lot of data and a lot of information and seen probably thousands, if not maybe tens of thousands of real human beings go through the process of looking for a coach. And I've looked at the actual data that they fill out and what they search for and what they type into the search bar. I watched the profiles that they click on and the ones that make them snap and the one that make them click. I've watched what make them pick up the phone and maybe actually, say yes and make them want to buy, and as well as make them want to walk away. And we're going to talk about a lot of that data and a lot of that information that I use in my own coaching practice every day, even to this day, and that we teach in the Numi Sales Academy every week as part of our Numi program. And we're going to talk about a lot of that here. In my years of not only having my own coaching practice and working with coaches, this is a factual statement, I have never seen a coach with negative reviews. Never. I have never seen a coach have a 1-star review. I might have seen a couple have a 4-star review, but I've never seen them have somebody say, wow, they were really a terrible coach. Quality of coaching is not the differentiator in what makes a coaching practice successful. It's the ability to run a coaching business that does it, and the mechanisms that it takes to do that. We're going to talk about how to do that. And what kind of leads me to this first point of what's actually happening in the coaching industry right now. And hopefully you can gather some of this pretty easily, because what I'm going to describe is this well-oiled and highly profitable machine. And I'm not trying to be negative or disparaging about anything in the industry. It is just what it is. This well-oiled, highly profitable machine that is specifically designed to keep people and coaches confused, investing, and in some ways keep you just a little bit hungry and a little bit broke. And it starts when coaches enroll in some sort of a coaching certification program. You will spend hours, hundreds of hours, teaching you wonderful techniques of how to hold space, how to ask amazing, powerful questions, how to create transformation in a client. And they're wonderful. And it's a great technique to learn because those are real skills and they matter. And then the program ends, you get a certification, some level of certification, and someone maybe in the program says something like, congratulations, you're great. Now you're ready to go find clients. And maybe you think, okay, great. Wow, how did I do that? And you might hear a number of things. They might say, well, go build your brand, start with your network, go on LinkedIn, write content, and the clients will come. They might say things like, get into corporate coaching. Your certification matters though. Get into corporate coaching. That'll help. They give you maybe these platitudes. And so you do it. You post, I don't know, 3 times a week. You write articles about transformation. You share quotes about potential and things that you believe. You use all the right coaching language. You talk about your methodology. You update your headshot. You do all these things. And what happens? Not a lot. And you probably think in your head somewhere, hey, must be doing something wrong. I must need something else. Something is stopping me from breaking through. And so you reach out to that school or people that you know, and they say, well, if you get another certification, that'll help you. So you go back and you get another certification or another specialization, maybe an advanced credential, and you invest again. And you get a more powerful framework. I don't know, letters after your name. And still, you're not getting appointments or you're not getting people that outreach to you. And it goes on and on and on. And this is not bad luck. This is not a bad market. This is not the economy. This would be what I would call this endless confusion loop. And the certification industry profits from every single lap that you run on this loop. And I want to be super clear about something. The people who built these programs, they're not bad people. They're not wrong. They're not awful. They're not any of those things. I want to be super clear about that. And I believe also that many of them believe in coaching and they genuinely want to help and they want to help you, but their business model depends on you believing that one more credential is the answer. Every renewal, every add-on, every advanced course, that's their revenue stream. Your confusion is their business model. And today, the next 3 days, but for sure today, I want to stop running that loop because we're going to walk through things that you weren't maybe taught in that process. And I want to be super clear. I'm not picking on them. I'm not slamming them. I'm not doing anything like that at all. I just want to make sure it's clear what their model is. And their model isn't dependent on you being successful. And in many ways, it runs a counter course to you being successful. And oftentimes, I'm going to say something that, a lot of people in that industry or that space don't say out loud, right? They don't talk about. And I want to say with a lot of respect, because I've watched this happen to some of the most talented coaches I've ever met. There is a certain kind of coach who is always working on their practice, always. They are researching new platforms. They're, building new funnels. They're exploring the newest AI tools. They're looking at chatbots. They're always trying new webinars. They're looking at new challenges. Maybe even this one, right? They're always in motion and they always have no clients. They're always trying new things, and yet they're still just struggling. And here is where I want to drive this home. And this might be hard to just hear and grasp, okay? But the people, and this is true not just with coaches, it's with businesses. The coaches who are always chasing the next new thing, that does not make you an innovator. In many respects, that's an avoider. You're using productivity as a hiding place. Because as long as you're working on something new and exciting, you never have to sit with the thing that you already know you need to do, which is harder, slower, it's less glamorous, it's less sexy, but it actually works. So here's your first really tough question I want you to sit on. You can throw it into the chat, but I want you to sit and you can type in yes or no here. Have you, in the last 90 or 120 days, started something new in your business before you finished what you had already started, something else? Anybody done that? Okay, I'm seeing lots of yeses. Of course, right? Okay. And as coaches, look at that. Look at all these yeses. As coaches, you know this. You know better, right? You coach against this all the time. You know this. And I'm also going to say something you all know as coaches. This is not a character flaw. You all know that. This doesn't mean you're a terrible person. This is a protection mechanism. Your brain is protecting you from the discomfort of doing foundational work, because the foundational work requires you to put yourself out there, right? It requires you to be seen, to be rejected, to fail in real time in front of real people. And that rejection is terrifying. It's hard. So what do we do instead? We tinker, right? This is where buzzwords come in. We tinker, we optimize, we research, we prepare, right? We work on things behind the scenes all the time. What it takes to build a coaching practice today is exactly what it took to build a coaching practice 5 years ago. Same thing it took 10 years ago. And I guarantee you, it will be exactly what it takes 10 years from now. And yeah, some of the tools might change. The platforms might change. The algorithms might change. But the fundamentals will never change. Relationships, clarity on the problem you solve, real conversations, and then lots of consistency. So it's the whole ballgame. And it's the same principles of any business that you run. Same ones, same concepts. Everything else is noise. And over the next 9 hours or 8.5, we're going to cut through that noise. So the first thing I want you to write down or get a tattoo, if any of you are in the tattoo world and you're looking for a new tattoo, you can get a tattoo that says Don Markland's amazing. That's a great tattoo to get. And you can get always looking for the new thing doesn't make me an innovator. It makes me an avoider. Stop using productivity as a hiding place. I want you to envision being as successful as you want to be. And I want you to envision what that life looks like. And this is an important part of the visualization exercise. What does your practice look like? What do you do in the mornings? What are your Sunday nights like? What do you travel? Do you do sales calls, or do you have a sales team? Do you have a couple of coaches that work for you? Do you like what does that look like? And I want you to really think through that. And some of you, this might be the first time you've really thought through this. And this is an important exercise that we're going to sit here for a second, because when I started my business, I did this, and I actually have it written down in a little piece of paper and a notebook down here, my original thoughts of my business. And it is very similar to what we have today in accountability now. And it shaped how, even in the early days, the way I was working, because I knew ultimately what I wanted. And if you know what that is, this is important. And I'm not going to call on anybody to share it, because this is your idea, this is your dream, but it's something to remember, that every coaching practice, every single one, starts in the same place. It's in a dream. Okay. And when you have a dream and you talk about it, it feels good, right? It is right with you. There's possibility there. And then once you have a dream, you do what we just did. You envision it. You can see it, and there's weight in that, right? It becomes maybe more than an idea. It starts to feel real, and that might be what got you here today. But the next step after you have this dream and you envision is you start to plan it. When you start to create a plan, it moves from imagination to a document. Maybe you write it down, maybe you've got your steps, maybe whatever it is. And that's where that envisionment starts to move into action, and you're getting into the possibility stage. And that's oftentimes where most coaches stop. They stop at something being possible. The third stage, when something becomes real, is when it becomes what I call scheduled. You can't just have something as an idea or being envisioned or even planned. It's got to be in your calendar, in your schedule, non-negotiable daily action. Not, I'll get to it. Not, it'll be next week. Not after I finish this, or it has to be scheduled, blocked, treated like the most important appointments of your life, because it is. If that dream, that vision of this is what I want from my coaching practice, if it really is the most important thing, then throughout the next 9 hours or 8 hours, whatever it is, you're going to start scheduling things in your calendar as these are do or die things that you want to do. And you're scheduling them in the way that you work every day. Now, I'm going to cover a couple of really tough things to hear that I hope, and I debated on saying these, and I thought, no, I got to just speak the candid truth to everybody. As you start to think about your purpose of what drives your actions, you have to find the purpose of your practice. And a little hint, your purpose can't be to help people. And I'm not picking on Mike Clark because I know he said that. Okay. Because I love Mike. Okay. But you need to add maybe some things of description to that, because there's billions of people that want to help people, and billions of ways to help people. Teachers want to help people, nurses want to help people. I mean, people really want to help people. So make your purpose specific, and why you are uniquely qualified to help a specific type of person. And so maybe as you start to define your purpose for your business of what specific type of person you're trying to help, and as you're defining your coaching practice, we're going to talk about this more in our next sprint. When we define our problem statement, we'll get to this a little more clearly. But there's one question I want you all to sit on as we get to our first little short, tiny little break is, do you want to provide a service, or do you want to have a business? And this is the first diversionary path every coach has to face, because many coaches don't realize the difference, and they're approaching their business as a service, but have business outcomes or business expectations. And let me explain. Providing a service means that you put in very little time, very little money investment, maybe little, not as much energy investment into it, into the practice itself. You let leads come as they may. You live off of referrals and word of mouth, which you love. And you love your client transformations. You love that. That's what you focus on, is the service that you provide. Your entire focus is the service and the transformation from your clients. And if that is your aim and that's what your full focus is, that's wonderful. And that's okay. If you want to have a business, that is something different. That means you put in a great deal of time, energy, and investment in a specific order, which we'll talk about later, but you don't rely on word of mouth. You don't rely on referrals. You create a system. You create an economic engine. You build and trust a process that wins over time. You're patient. You win in the end. You sacrifice in the short term to win in the long run. You focus less on client transformation and maybe change from your clients, and you focus more on the return on your investment and growth of your business over time, so you can live the life that you wanted. It doesn't mean you don't care about the quality of your service. You absolutely do. But your primary focus is on the growth of your practice. And this is when I said the great diversionary path is, it's this expectations gap. Is so many times, especially with coaches, I see coaches have I want to run a service, but they have a business outcome expectation. All I want is to have a service. I don't want to put in all this time, money, energy, effort. All I care about is the service of my clients, but I really want to have the lifestyle outcome and the financial outcomes of running a business. And that is what's called an expectations gap that will not occur. And that's is what causes frustrations for you as a coach. And it doesn't work that way. It never has, and it never will. It won't work, not with a new AI. It won't work if you hire a new coach. It won't work if you suddenly discover Clawbot and install that. It won't work if you suddenly launch a YouTube channel and get to 50,000 subscribers. It won't work if you get a new agency, not with a new certification, not if you get on Numi, not if you suddenly land a separate coaching contract. Not ever. It will never work. If you want to run a service that have the expectations of a business outcome. And it's okay if you want to have a service. If that is your dream and your passion, and you say, Don, I've met coaches that that's all they want. And I say to them, that's fantastic. You should. And that's okay. Just have the right expectations of that outcome. And to that point, there are many degrees of running a business. Not everybody has to run a multi-million-dollar obsessive, as my wife says, I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm, thinking about revenue, and she says, Don, you're exhausting. Okay. And that's okay. There's many degrees of your business success, many degrees. And that's why when I said earlier, your exercise of closing your eyes, move it to define your success. But if you thought during that exercise, you were thinking about the transformation of your clients, you might be thinking, I want a service business. And again, that's okay. Or if you were thinking, no, I want this type of a lifestyle. I want this type of freedom. I want this type of bang, bang, bang. You might be thinking, I want this type of business. And for the remainder of our entire 3-day workshops and sprints, we're going to be assuming everybody moves forward with option 2 of running a business. This is where all business owners, we're going to talk about how we run these things as a business. Every business actually runs the same, right? And there's kind of 4 components to growing your business. It's lead generation, then marketing, then sales, then servicing, in that order. And yeah, the order matters. And in some ways, this is like syntax. And my college English professor would love that I'm bringing this up. Uh, she would love that I'm bringing up syntax. Like if you take the phrase, Joe ate the dog, and the phrase, the dog ate Joe, right? Both are the exact same phrase, right? With the exact same words. But syntax, the order, makes an enormous difference. So how you focus on your business in the right order makes all the difference in the world. Lead generation, then marketing, then sales, then servicing. That's every business in the world, especially coaching. It's no different. We focus on lead generation first with everything we've got, or a vast percentage of everything we've got, which we're going to go through. Then marketing, which helps us improve conversion. Then how we sell to those leads, and then how we service them, not the other way around. And some of you right now are doing it the other way around. You focus all of your efforts on being the best coach you can. And then maybe you create content or post Instagram quotes like crazy, which are probably very similar to a lot of Instagram quotes or leadership principles that are out there, to the same network of 300 people that are connected to you. And I don't know how many of you realize this, but social media algorithms only show your content to about 7% of your audience every time. So if you have 300 people that you're connected to, your content is only showing to 20 people at best. And so you wonder why all of your posts don't work. And so you try things like hashtags or carousels or whatever it is, and none of it works, right? It's not because your content's not great, but it's because your order is wrong. Lead generation first, then marketing, then sales, then servicing. And we're going to go through each step over the next 3 days. Okay. But you've got to commit to all of them in order. Okay. And one more thing I want to emphasize before we get into some actual work is the next, next 3 days, it's not really going to be about inspiring you or getting you fired up. It is about giving you some specific things to do, some specific plans. If you want to be inspired and motivated and jacked up, there's a lot of ways you can go do that. Really, what I hope is it's about, I would say this is a kind of a silly word, but it's about installation. I want you to leave here with some things that you can install and have in place that you can move with. These are things that I use every day in my own practice. Everything I'm going to walk through and use are things that we actually use every day in my own coaching practice. Nothing is theory or ideas or things from some fake Facebook course. It's actual things that I know work. And if there is some voice in your head that says, this won't work for me, or my niche is different, well, I've tried this before, I want you to hear something really clear. And as a coach, I know you know what those thoughts are. Those are not insights. They're not observations. Those are very likely limiting beliefs. And I know you know what limiting beliefs are because you teach them. And they are blockers that you have already pre-installed, usually unconsciously, but you install limiting beliefs to protect yourself from having to do the hard thing. And hopefully over the next few days, we're pulling out those blockers right away. And earlier, I think it was Mike Sark, who talked about fulfillment. He talked about, uh, he found fulfillment in his work, and he talked about happiness, if I remember right. That's what, yeah, Mike talked about. And I love that. Okay. Because what the idea here is, we're going to try to associate some of the hard work of growing your practice. We're going to associate fulfillment with some of that hard work, because I have found that some hard work isn't fun, but if we can connect our fulfillment to it, it's not work. It's not hard work anymore. We can connect that fulfillment, that purpose, that joy that we have. This is NLP 101, right? If we can connect so the fulfillment of our work with the hard part of our work, it suddenly doesn't become hard work anymore. So with that, we're going to start with one of the most important parts of your practice. It is how you position yourself in the market. And this is one of the first things that I uh, came up with for my own practice that helped me differentiate a lot. It was one of the first things I started to teach when I started to work with coaches. It's this concept of undeniable authority. And it is, in some respects, it has to do with finding your niche, but I'm going to explain it in a way that becomes really easy, because this is kind of the concept that most coaches miss. We've talked about, you know, oftentimes it's difficult for coaches to stand out, or then they struggle. It's not, again, because you're maybe a bad coach or what you do is not effective. It's probably very effective. Okay. But uh, the human brain is built for speed and survival. Long before modern marketing and TikTok and internet marketing existed, our brains evolved to make fast decisions with limited energy. And psychologists called this cognitive efficiency. They were this researcher, Daniel Kahneman, he won the Nobel Prize for his work on decision making. He showed that the brain prefers fast, simple judgments over slow, complex thinking. So if something takes too much effort to understand, the brain just doesn't lean in. It filters it out. So if you take that idea into coaching, this is where most coaches lose people. When you say things like transformation or clarity, or things that people don't regularly say or understand, the brain has to stop and interpret it. If somebody ever has to ask themselves, wait a minute, what does that mean for me? That extra step creates what's called cognitive load. It's the concept studied very heavily in psychology. And the more effort required to understand something, the less likely the brain is going to engage with it. So instead of leaning in, your potential clients just move on by. And this is kind of the science behind undeniable authority and how it helps remove that friction. Undeniable authority and niching, it's the permission that you earn in the mind of the buyer that says, I am not only qualified, but I am the perfect choice to help solve your problem. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what undeniable authority is, how to find it for yourself, and why it's so important. Let me give you a silly metaphor. But so imagine you walk into a hardware store, you see a hammer, a screwdriver, and a chainsaw. Each tool solves a very specific problem. And you don't grab a chainsaw to hang a picture frame. You don't use a hammer to cut down a tree. That would make no sense. But that's exactly what most coaches do all the time. They present themselves like a tool that does everything. and the brain doesn't know how to use them. It's very confusing. And this connects to something psychologists will call categorization theory. This goes back to there was a researcher named Eleanor Roche in the 1970s, where she determined that the brain organizes the world by grouping things into very clear categories. And you all know this in our everyday lives, where when something doesn't fit into a clear category, it becomes harder to process and remember. So when a coach says, I help with mindset and confidence and purpose and anxiety and transformation, the brain can't categorize it. It's so hard. The brain just won't remember it. And this is how I know you all know this naturally. When you walk into a grocery store, imagine walking in and wanting to go look for milk. You all know instinctually, go to the dairy section because your brain knows milk belongs here. Or if you needed to go look for Pop-Tarts, which are delicious, by the way, you know, go to the breakfast area because in the breakfast area, that's of course where the Pop-Tarts will be. But imagine if the store had milk everywhere. Some in the snack aisle, some in the cleaning supplies, some in the frozen food. You would get so frustrated, not because the store didn't carry milk, but because your brain couldn't find it easily. And that's what happens with your message when you say, why help with mindset, confidence, purpose, transformation? It is like putting milk all over the store. And your prospect doesn't know where to place you. The brain just gets confused. But when you say it very specifically, you're in the dairy section. It's clear, it's easy, it's findable. And their brain can find you easily and remember you. That you're literally talking their brain and remember you. That's how important it is. And you don't realize how much you're working against yourself by just following some of the guidance you might have gotten through your certification program. By just following what they maybe taught you, you are working against yourself. And with that, let me talk to you about where the concept of undeniable authority really comes from and how it works. There are two terms from it. There's the word undeniable and the word authority. Undeniable, if you define it, it could be defined as something as without question, right? There is without reproach. There is no ability when we're arguing against it, and it's undeniable. And then authority would be expert in the field. This would be genius level, right? Upper echelon, okay, whatever it is, okay? So when I combine those two, undeniable and authority, it would mean that if somebody that is undeniable authority, without question, a person in an industry or a field or a problem, no one will question that you should be in this area working on this problem to solve. Without question. If there is question, if there is doubt, even from yourself, if there is question or doubt, then it is not undeniable authority. And that's what's so important. When you have undeniable authority, you are in such a strong position to sell your coaching. And this is now statement number 2 that I hope you all can write down and memorize and get a tattoo about, that selling your coaching practice is not about finding who you can coach, but it's about finding who you can easily sell your coaching services to. And I'll say it again really clearly. growing your coaching practice is not about finding who you can coach, but it's about finding who you can easily sell your coaching services to. And that begins with you learning your undeniable authority. That's it. When you center in on your undeniable authority, where you are an expert in your problem, one problem, you have undeniable authority in a problem, and you find those people that have that problem, you naturally rise to the top as the person who can solve that problem. And now you can easily sell your coaching services to that market. I'm going to briefly share an example of somebody that we took through our Newbie Sales Academy with this undeniable authority. And then I'm going to walk you through how to do this exercise for yourself. We had a person that came to our academy. And I'm going to call her Coach Daly was her last name. Okay. But she was amazing. Now, when she first came to my academy, she wanted to coach female entrepreneurs. That's what she wanted to do because that was her passion. There was one problem. She had never been an entrepreneur, ever. She had been a nurse practitioner in a trauma ICU for years. And so she had zero undeniable authority working with entrepreneurs. And I remember meeting with her and I would talk to her about that. And I would say, here's your problem. You want to coach your female entrepreneurs. And I know you can coach them because she would say to me, but Don, I can help them get unstuck. I can help them, with decision making. I can help them do all these things. I'm a great coach. And I would tell her, I know you're a great coach, but you have no undeniable authority. You're going to run up against all these other coaches that have undeniable authority. And they're going to choose people that have common ground with them. They'll very rarely choose you. So through some advice and coaching, I encouraged her to choose something that she had the highest amount of undeniable authority in. And then through a few discussions, we learned that not only had she been a trauma nurse in an ICU, she had gone through a particularly difficult divorce with a narcissist husband. And we realized through the combination of those two life experiences, she was uniquely equipped and had a very high level of undeniable authority to coach women that have gone through or were going through a very difficult divorce from narcissistic husbands or ex-husbands, right? Talk about undeniable authority. She was more qualified than anyone because of not only what her professional experience was, but her background as a trauma nurse and dealing with high stress environments. And so we changed her program to focus on that one problem. Because her undeniable authority was so high. And sure enough, she started to win clients. The market, we were able to win clients. And as she started to win one client and another client and another client, after she had a few clients, a number of her clients, there were actually 4 of them, also female entrepreneurs. They had businesses. And so even though she was coaching them through their traumatic divorces, she also started to coach them through their businesses. And as she coached them through their business, guess what started to expand? Their undeniable authority. And now as she expanded her undeniable authority, she could now start to market towards people and women entrepreneurs because she could show she was amazing at doing this. She could show she had undeniable authority at solving one problem. And that's how undeniable authority works. And in the end, she ended up having really 2 programs that she worked on. She still to this day has her product. She called it Women on Fire. She has her program where she works with women going through those divorces. She has that. And then she has her entrepreneurship program working with female entrepreneurs. But she's extremely successful with it. That's how important undeniable authority is. And if you're presenting yourself in a different way, oftentimes all you're doing is confusing your audience and confusing your market. And there's something called specialty bias. Specialty bias is where people naturally trust specialists more than generalists. And you see this in medicine all the time. If you had a heart issue, would you rather see a general doctor or a heart specialist? And the answer is obvious. The bias, this has been studied in consumer psychology and decision-making research for years. When someone appears focused on one specific problem, the brain associates that with higher competence and lower risk. So you becoming a specialist around one really clear problem feels much less risky. And now we're going to talk about how to specifically create these problem statements. And many of you have participated in some of our New Sales Academy workshops. And so I'm going to walk, some of you have seen some of this before, but there's a very clear algorithm that we use, equation that we use to determine this. We will have your demographic. Okay, plus 2 to 3, what I call 2 AM pain points. Okay, plus the words I solve that. Okay, if you want to take a screenshot, you sure can. Okay, this is your problem statement. Let me explain how this works and why it's so important. So oftentimes, and I see this all the time from coaches, somebody will ask you, what is it that you do? And I will watch coaches squirm and get wonky and weird. And, you know, they get all squirrely real fast, right? Like when somebody says, what is it you do? And they're like, I help people transform to the best lives ever. Okay. And they say, obviously, and then you feel all sweaty. Okay. This statement, when you get this down, okay, what happens is you get rid of that 300-pound gorilla on your chest. You, everything in your practice gets easier. Your confidence goes up. Everything improves when you get this right. I'm going to show you how to do it. And everybody will get this right here on this call. And some of you have already done this before because you've done this in a different environment. So I'm going to use my example for my coaching practice. So accountability now, right? Originally, we used to say we're a business coaching firm, and it didn't work. People would ask, what is it that we do? And I would say, hey, we're a business coaching firm. And it wasn't effective. So now we say businesses between 2 and 20 million. Okay. Right here. So that's our demographic. Businesses between 2 and 20 million. Right here. That's our demographic. Typically struggle with, we're going to name 30 points. Typically struggle with sales and marketing. They typically struggle with sales and marketing, building the team, right? Okay. And cash flow. I solved that, or we solved that because we're selling multiple coaches. Right? That's it. So we have our 2 to 3 pain points, and then the terms I solved that. And I'm going to dig down each component here, okay, for everybody. You want to have a very specific demographic. It can't be people. You can't say, oh, people struggle with this. Okay. You want to have a tight group. You want to have a tight demographic. And the reason why is because you want people to feel like you're speaking to them. If it feels like you could speak to anybody, they will opt out of it. Okay. They're like, okay, you're not talking to me. Okay. If you say things, here's another trap that you run into. If you say things that make it, if you say things that it's a no lose, opt in. Like, for example, if you say, and coaches do this all the time, they'll say highly ambitious leaders, okay, or highly effective executives, okay. Well, who in the world is going to say, well, I'm not highly ambitious, okay, I'm not highly effective, okay, right? You can't use adjectives that people will feel ashamed to opt out of, right? You can't use adjectives that people will feel like a loser if they don't, if they opt out of. You have to be really clear on that demographic. Okay. So you could say, hey, your leaders or women over 45 and women, women that are going through, let me make sure I'm not blurry. Thank you, Michelle. I saw that. Okay. Thank you. Now I see it. Okay. Uh, over the age of 30 or directors that are directors that are 3 years onto the job. Or like, Coach Andy that was talking about, he was in IT. If you're working with the IT people, IT directors, that are 3 years into their career, typically struggling, right? Okay. Brand new IT managers typically struggling building a team, right? Learning how to communicate up and then managing P&L. Okay. Like, and then, whatever it is. Okay. But what's very important is when you get to the pain points, you don't use coach words. Okay. This is important for everybody. You don't want to say phrases that you know what it means and they don't. You want to use words that they would actually say every day to a spouse or a significant other or to a friend across the kitchen table or across a cup of coffee. What are things that they say every day? I'm struggling with this. Or my boss says I'm struggling with this. Or words. If they're saying things, if you think people say the word transitions or clarity, or they don't, okay, I promise. Okay, if ChatGPT told you to say it, then I didn't say it. Okay, you're going to say words they say, and in the last phrase, I tell people just to say either I solve it or I fix it. Okay, do not say I coach. Do not say I help. Do not say I empower. Okay. These are what are called lower status phrases. For those of you that took literature or creative writing in college, you will remember this. You use these phrases to lower the status of a character. Okay. And you can't do that. You have to be a bold statement here and tell people, I fix this. That doesn't mean you are changing your role as a coach. You can still coach the way you always coach. You can still do all of the things you've always been trained to do. It doesn't mean I'm telling you to be a consultant. It doesn't mean I'm telling you to do it for them. It doesn't mean I'm telling you to take the road for them. But you need to hear somebody is going to help me solve this problem. They need to hear a certain language. And my favorite way to illustrate this, and this is going to make me sound extremely nerdy, and I'm okay with that. There was a movie. This is old because this movie came out in 1999. I can't believe that. There's a movie called The Matrix. Some of you might not have heard of this movie. If hopefully you all have, you should see it again. But there's a part where Neo meets the Oracle, and the Oracle tells Neo, "You are not the chosen one." And then later on, you discover Neo was the chosen one. And another character says to Morpheus, "But I thought the Oracle said that Neo wasn't." And Morpheus says, Oracle told Neo what he needed to hear in order to discover it for himself. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you to lie like the Oracle did. Okay. But my point is, when you say I solved that or I fixed that, you are saying phrases that this person needs to hear in order to engage in a coaching environment. Now, if you said phrases like, I will do all the work for you and you don't have to do anything, I would think that's probably being misleading. I would say that's probably you cross the line unless you're going to do those things for them. Okay. But you saying, I solve it, I fix it, is you making a declarative statement about when I work with you, my coaching works with you in a way that gets you to solve these problems. And you have to be that confident in your work. That's what they need. They need to hear your confidence. Where, when we first got together, the first thing we talked about was first of all, the kind of the state of the industry of what kind of brought everybody together, and the, uh, the importance of, uh, the certification, or, my beliefs of what the certification industry does and what their business model is. And it's maybe a little bit different of what your model is, in order to be successful. And it doesn't mean certification companies are bad. They just have a different model of what it takes for you to succeed. Secondly, every coaching practice has a decision point. Do I want to have a service business or run this as a business? And it's important that as you make that decision, if you want to have a business, you start to make very specific business oriented decisions. And over now, the next, between a little bit here today, in the next few minutes, and then all of tomorrow, we're going to be starting with number one on that factor: lead generation and marketing, and then sales, and then a little bit of servicing. And there's a reason why we do that order, because, as I looked in my own deck, my lights were on the thing, you could see that it is available on Amazon, that anybody ever wants to get that little shameless plug. Okay. But all businesses start with the concept of lead generation. And we will spend a lot of time talking about that tomorrow. And the core processes of how to focus on lead generation, what categorizes as lead generation and what doesn't. But then we also talked about today, we spent a lot of time coming up with your program, your problem statement. But the second concept that's really important when you're getting your coaching practice set up, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, this will be your homework, is having your program in place. So when you're selling coaching, the next kind of domino, the blocker for your clients, is coaching is an abstract, it's a hard thing to understand. And there's maybe a lot of reasons uh, for that. Okay. Some of you might not know this, but coaching was a term, life coaching, was a term that was developed in 1988 by a guy named, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head, but his name was Tom something. Okay. He was a life insurance salesman. Okay. He was selling life insurance, and he learned, as he taught life skills, it helped him sell more life insurance. Okay. So it wasn't this altruistic, I can coach people. It was a way to sell life insurance, right? As I helped them in other parts of he was the guy who created the Wheel of Life, believe it or not. And he realized, as I helped them in these other areas, they buy their life insurance. It's the way, okay? And he's the guy that helped work with this company called the International Coaching Federation. And he helped them create the organization. And they use his concepts even to this day. Something I used to know it off the top of my head, right? But that started in 1988 and developed all the way through the 90s. And it is pretty much an unregulated industry. Okay, it does not have the same regulations, right, as any type of medical practice. Some of you on this call right now have a therapy license, right, which has a much different standard of regulation. Some of you might have a doctor, something in a medical field that is a much more regulated practice. Okay. The reason I bring that up is not to get you on licensing or certifications. Okay. It's just to say that people don't know what medical or what certifications mean and what coaching means. And so when you talk about coaching, it can oftentimes confuse your audience. I learned this firsthand. I came from a background of sales. And when I started my practice and I started to sell coaching, I quickly discovered my prospects didn't know what I was talking about. Even people that would fill out a form or say, I'm interested in coaching. And then I would get on the phone with them and start to say, well, I'm a coach or I do this type of coaching or something. They quickly got confused the more times I brought up the word coaching. So I quickly applied and actively tried to eliminate the word coaching from our sales process as quickly as possible. And that is something I would encourage all of you to do. In your entire sales process, the more you can eliminate the word coach or coaching, the less confused your audience will become because they don't know what it means. It is the word trap of all word traps. You don't need it. You don't need to say the word coaching. And I would replace it with your program. What is a program? Okay. A program is just packaging for your coaching. It's just packaging. Okay. And it can be as fancy packaging as you want. And this is where you can use ChatGPT if you want. Okay. When I started my coaching program, we still use this for our individual coaching programs. I wrote a book that was called The 4 C's of Accountability. Okay. That was the name of our program. And we still use that for our individual coaching. The 4 C's of Accountability was just, it was just a clever way to talk about accountability, right? Critique success, correct failure, celebrate growth, crush mediocrity. Okay. And I had this whole 71-page book about it. I don't know if that's the page number. I made that up. Okay. But it wasn't very many. Okay. It wasn't very many pages. Okay. And we had this little book and we would, sell the book on Amazon, but we'd give the free paperback book, the ebook to people like crazy. And that program gave us undeniable authority to sell individual coaching to people because we had a program. Now, when we said coaching, did we follow step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 every single time? Of course not, because in coaching, I think all of you know this, coaching has an organic nature to it. It can sometimes turn left and cover something. And sometimes, some weeks you'll cover something that wasn't on an agenda at all, right? They might show up and say, hey, I know we were going to talk about this today, but we got to talk about something else. We found many times, even though we talked about the 4 C's of accountability, if somebody logged into it, after the sales call, we didn't talk about the 4 C's of accountability ever again. Didn't matter. That wasn't the point, right? They were still part of the program. Later on, once we really honed in on our business coaching program, we actually created our SCORE model. That's our business coaching program, SCORE, sales and marketing, controlled delivery, operational data, really massive goals, and empower the team, SCORE. And that's what I wrote my second book about. Okay. And that is our business operating system that you take businesses through. That's our program there. And this isn't to self-plug my own models. Okay. My point of it is when I'm selling coaching, it is much easier for somebody to remember the 4 C's of accountability or SCORE than it is to remember just coaching, because coaching is this abstract term. And so when my sales team is selling our services, they just have to remember SCORE. And we obviously use the term SCORE on purpose because it has an emotional component to it. We use language like, we're going to help you win. We're going to help you score. We're going to help you, right? We use a lot of that language all the time. So it helps all these business owners be like, yeah, more than, we use lots of masculine energy and all this kind of crap, right? And people love it. Okay. And so that's our selling process. We all can do something similar. is rather than say coaching, create a program that helps not only connect what you do emotionally to your prospects, also make it memorable. If I've done this exercise with many, many coaches, I have found so many programs sound like a Christian youth group. Okay. Like Rise program or the Path or, Sleep or the Journey or, and if you've ever been to the American South, that's about every Christian youth program out there. Okay. But it doesn't matter. Okay. You can choose whatever you want. Okay. Uh, you just want it to be memorable. Now, I have found that acronyms are great. Acronyms can be great because they can be very easy to remember. This is also a great place where ChatGPT can be your friend because you can use or Claude or whatever AI model you want to use. It can be your friend, okay, and to help you come up with it. But as you have a program, you would find two things happen. Number one, you are much more confident talking about what you do and how you do it. Because right now, many of you might be stuck in talking about how you do what you do. Because you might just say things like, when we show up and I'm going to hold you accountable to what you talk about, and I'm going to, like, that's standard, right? And somebody might be like, well, how are they going to help me? Okay. So you don't have to say anything like that. You can say, well, let me tell you about my program. Step one, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And all along the way, there's going to be great accountability and discussions and progress. And I mean, it gives structure to the Jackson Pollock painting of your coaching. Okay. It gives structure to it. Okay. But more importantly, it creates emotional memory to what you're doing. And that's what you want. You want them to tap emotion to what you do. You want them to connect it. And that's why you want to use a phrase or something that connects. Now, the other component to it is I want you to connect it to your brand or your company name.
So for the individual program, it's called Spark, which is self-awareness, potential, action, resilience, and knowledge.
She called it Spark, and it's an acronym. Okay. But when you hear Spark, every single human being has an emotional response to that. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. You envision it, you see it right away. You're like, oh, Spark, got it. It's a starting point. It's an ignition point. Right. And that's one of the key things about naming your program is you want it to invigorate emotion. You want it to ignite emotion somewhere. Right. And so because that's what makes, this is going to be going down psychology and NLP here a little bit, but this is how you connect it to the emotional part of their brain and get them to remember it. That is your litmus test when you name your program and whatever it is, whatever your name is, and you see your audience or your prospective customer, or even people that understand your customer, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, you nailed it. And I'm going to give you permission to put out things that are not perfect. So there you go. You now have permission to put out things less than perfect because you need to test it. You need to put it out.
Clarity stands for helping you reconnect with your core identity, set healthier limits, build awareness, take responsible action, create intentional habits, track progress, and move confidently into your next chapter.
One is you can shrink the length of it, right? Okay. It's got a lot of meat on that bone, and you can make that a much smaller wing, like a much smaller bite-sized item there. This is my clarity program, and this is the outcomes you're going to get. And he spoke about that. You're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. I'm not going to tell you about the weeds of how. Let me do work on that. Okay. This is the outcomes, and that's the goal of the program.
Okay. So I came up with
the Bloom method, which stands for B is for become aware, which is the first step to change is awareness. L, listen to your intuition. O, own your center. O, open to possibilities. And M, move into your most amazing future self.
Okay. But it also evokes emotion. We all instantly know what bloom means. Okay. You said yesterday that your audience is new mothers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm speaking to new mothers, bloom, right? I don't mean to be over emotional around your audience, but right, everything's about new mothers, new child, new children. Everything is a new milestone, new first steps, right? And so bloom connects with the emotional state that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can connect to their emotional state on multiple touch points, it has a higher likelihood of remembering, remembering it, because that's where they are. Okay. And I would encourage all of you, when you come up with your program name, start to incorporate that name into your vernacular. And it's just using in their brain, this is called the reticular activator. You're getting that to start to just grab onto it more and more and more. And not to be too on the nose, but it's hilarious that the ADHD coach couldn't get the word show up, and because they were looking at too many things, right? So what will feel right is when you start to test it with your audience a little bit and you watch their nods and you watch them respond, right? Create emotional connection to all of your activities so that you can start, so you can stop procrastination, so you can focus, right? And we're the Connect program, okay? And I don't know how many of you have ever done this. You made a choice and then you second guessed it for like 6 months. The only thing I would tell you to look at is your audience, as you described them yesterday, right? They had the mind bees right there, right? And maybe the problem you're solving is peace and contentment, right? And learning to slow down and thrive. See, I'm 100% confident that I am not a woman and have no understanding of what they know. So the goal is to be memorable. That's the goal. I don't care if it's a word, if it's a phrase, if it's a statement, whatever it is. The goal is to be memorable. And if it's memorable, you'll win. This is a no manosphere zone. So I appreciate you saying that. So it's not just about referrals and word of mouth, which are great, but this is about how to build a machine. That's a worse answer than zero. Content is not lead generation. Content is sales. Content is brand building. And brand building, when you don't have a lot of clients or you have minimal revenue and you're trying to make rent or pay bills or live a life, is one of the most expensive luxury items that you can't always afford. And oftentimes I see coaches have this framework reversed, where they're spending 70 to 80% on brand awareness, 20 to 25% on demand generation, and 5% maybe on lead generation. And then they're shocked and surprised when they're not getting any leads. Okay. Demand gen are activities. Said it differently. I said it earlier, but one of the ways you can differentiate them is branding would be when I put my company, like it's like a spray approach. I'm putting my company just in front of any audience to create awareness. So like if I put a billboard, on the freeway, yes, my target audience could likely see it, but I also know hundreds of thousands of other human drivers are going to see it, right? And so it's not necessarily my target audience, but some of them might see it. Are they in the frame of mind to purchase when they're driving by? No, right? That's not the point. I'm actually not trying to drive or increase traffic, website traffic or conversions. I'm just trying to create awareness. Hey, that's a great way of demand gen, but it's not lead gen because those people aren't necessarily in a buying state of mind. But the goal is to be memorable so that when they are in a state of mind or know someone that is, they know who to refer to. YouTube and shorts without CTAs is branding.
Okay.
Okay. When I say CTAs, that stands for call to action. YouTube ain't ever going to move to lead gen. Like you could work that as hard as you want. It's never going to move to lead gen. Okay. Until you could do, this, YouTube ads. Okay. Well, now that can be lead gen. Okay. Meta ads can be. Meta ads would be Facebook ads or Instagram ads. Okay. Google ads could be. Directories. Okay. Directories, like the number one directory coaching marketplace in the world, newme.com. Okay. Just a little side plug there. You could take a screenshot of this. You could throw this into your ChatGPT tool or AI tool, Claude or whatever you want, and say, here's my coaching practice. Expand each of these columns for me personally to get me the full list. And that right there, that reality is one of the biggest breaking points. And I'll be honest, this is not a coach problem. This is a problem because we work with business owners all the time, because 70% of your time, money, and energy should be spent on lead generation activities. And your post and reels. Boosting posts does two things for you. One, it gives money to Facebook and Instagram. Like it just gives them money. And they add, by the way, a big 23% fee when you boost ads. Okay. Or boost posts, as opposed to creating a specific ad. Okay. And so I tell people, don't boost posts. If you're going to spend that money, I would rather you spend it in lead generation, not branding. If I had to get leads today, where were the places I would do it and how exactly to do it, so that you should be, by the end of that, every one of you should be able to take control and know how to get leads on lead generation, and know if I then create a budget, I could get leads right away for my practice. Because without leads, you won't be able to grow and scale. The key to running ads is 3 principles. Number 1, is my target audience there? If it doesn't pass that checkpoint, there is no reason to continue with the other checkpoints. LinkedIn has, of all social media platforms, it has far and wide the worst performing ad network in all social media. And it's not even close. Like it underperforms so bad, like marketing agencies are abhorrent to it. And why? I'm going to run it for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, the data's going to tell me the truth. But when you create any marketing budget, any marketing campaign, you only create campaigns that you can run for 6 months without stress or worry. You want something that you could run for 6 months if you didn't close a client, if you lost a bunch of your clients, right? If your car broke down, anything. I could still run my marketing budget for 6 months. Every single month I could pay that bill and I wouldn't stress. And we're going to go through this exercise at the start of our second sprint and how to do that. Because when you do that, now you're running a business. So I appreciate, all that you're doing to invest in your coaching practice. And I've been there. And candidly, this is why we decided to do this, and to not have some silly sales, sales scaling environment or something, because I have been in your exact shoes where I felt like I was just being pitched to for 3 days, and it was exhausting and frustrating. And I thought, God, you know what I really want is I just want some help. That's what I'd like. I'd like to not have to buy something else. Your week should look like that 70-20-10 rule where you're spending that much time on that lead generation. And that's what'll tell you when you need to hire a team, is when you have so much revenue from servicing that it's impacting your lead generation efforts, not your branding efforts, not your content efforts, but your lead generation efforts and your sales efforts, right? Don't break the 70-20-10. Don't ever break it. And if you're not living by it, start to live by it, right? Start to live by it. And I would tell every coach, be on every single directory possible, because it's about math. It's about exposure. And it's about there's another component about the way Google sees you. Because when Google sees you connected in multiple places, your personal website is rewarded, because through linking and through different types of authority. Okay. And so I would never, ever say, I don't want to be in that directory. I don't think they're going to get me the right audience. Even if they're not going to get you the right audience, I would be on every directory I could. If I found a directory that said, hey, we only have female people on here, I would contact that directory and say, how can I be on your directory? I know you only have female clients. I know you do. And why would I do that? Because the way directories work, the way internet works, guess what always occurs? They always get people that don't have anything to do with their directory, because nobody has an unlimited budget ever. And my personal coaching practice, Accountability Now, our marketing budget when I started the practice was very different than it is today. Very, very different. And that's okay. It scales over time. If it produced leads, they would charge, because to produce leads takes money, takes expense. It does. And they would charge. Now, the third principle before we talk about how to communicate or how to set up profiles on each of these directories, is it's all about math. The reason I tell people to be on every directory possible, or every directory that you can, is because it is a numbers game. It is a volume and a numbers game. You should never trust one resource to be your only resource. You want to be able, if you can get one lead from a Numi and one lead from here and one from a Bark and one from here and one from here, all of a sudden you're getting 5 or 6 or 7 a month, right? And because you've created this engine, and just like a stockbroker diversifies their portfolio, every marketing channel has ups and downs. Every single one does. When you show up on a directory with your web copy, your whatever, and all these things, and you aren't speaking the language of the audience that goes to that directory, you're like Don. You can go to these ChatGPT and Claudes and say, tell me about this directory or this URL. Who is their audience? What type of people go there? And they're going to, especially Claude, is going to start to give you insights and say, it looks like this is their demographic of traffic. My LinkedIn picture should be different than my Instagram picture. My Instagram picture should be different than my Numi picture. My Numi picture should be different than my Psychology Today picture. My Psychology Today picture should be different than my Life Coach Directory picture, right? They should all be different. What you're asking is about what's called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, or AEO, Answering Engine Optimization. You're starting to have your web of exposure, but you also want to have a governor, which is, hey, I want to be able to control my own leads. I don't want to just rely on directories to send me. I want to be able to control it. And I said LinkedIn is the lowest performing social channel, just so everybody knows. The major social channels, if you said it was LinkedIn, Twitter, Meta, like Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, and like Snapchat, let's say those are the major ones. The worst performing by far is LinkedIn. It's not even close. The second worst performing is Snapchat. And then the third worst performing is TikTok. And then there's this big jump, big jump. Okay. I said at the end of our last sprint that your marketing budget, what you want it to be something that you could spend every day for 6 months with zero stress. The number one factor of a marketing campaign, especially on Facebook or Meta, of it being ineffective is actually not your content or the ad itself. The number one factor is you didn't set the right budget. That's it. Because I have seen numerous times terrible ads, terribly designed ads perform because they show up correctly. Hey, this is going to be too low. Your ads are going to be invisible. They're going to waste your money. To optimize, leads are going to come slowly, right? And it's probably never going to really get traction. It's just going to slow drip in. It's not going to work. This calculator will save you so much stress because it'll tell you when you're ready to run meta ads. And so that you don't waste your time and your energy doing it wrong at the wrong time and getting overly frustrated at this doesn't work. People run meta ads every day in almost every industry and are wildly successful. There is what's called high intent leads, okay, and low intent leads. High intent leads are word of mouth, right? Referrals. Many of you have had high referrals and word of mouth, and those are beautiful, right? We love word of mouth. We love referrals, okay? And we'll talk more about this at the end of today and tomorrow, but a word of mouth lead, a word of mouth referral, those are people that show up pre-sold, right? They're ready to buy. If I've got a word of mouth lead or referral lead, I sell that very differently because their bags are packed. I just got to get out of the way and get them on the plane. Okay. That's the difference in your types of leads. Okay. You have to look at them differently. If any of you have ever tried to run meta ads, your first attempt or first few attempts, that's what it feels like. You get somebody on the phone and you're like, do you even know why we're talking? Like, this is crazy. Well, the problem with Facebook and Instagram, everybody's on there, right? Okay. Like everybody is on there. So how do we do that? Well, there's a number of ways, right? We can for sure use the tools that Meta gives us. They give us tools to help us simplify the audience and do audience targeting. But there's another way that makes it even better where we create a custom audience. And here's 3 mistakes I see directors make in their first 6 months of their job. Mistake number 1, mistake number 2, mistake number 3. Here's how you solve it with this one thing. Whatever. Okay. So I'm going to have there's going to be nothing that says go to the website or buy now. I'm not going to say anything like sign up for coaching. It is purely educational because my goal is to get people to watch this video. That's it. The only people in this audience now are people that have watched that educational, powerful video at least 50% of the way through. Usually when I'm starting this out, I will do 75% of the way through, not 50, because I want a really good audience. And if it's not performing, I might do 100% of the way through. Like I want to make sure they've seen it. Okay. And remember it. And the key to a static image ad is you want either the ideal person that, like if you're selling coaching, you want the ideal person that they want to be. I would choose their ideal person holding a cute dog. Okay. If you can just put a cute dog in it, it's going to perform better. Okay. And if you want my cute puppy, he's out for hire. Like I'll send you pictures of my cute puppy. You can just impose him. He looks great. When you are setting up your ad, do not, boy, if I can get you to remember anything about your meta ads, do not send them to don't send them to your website. Don't send them to a landing page. Don't send them somewhere else. Just do the Facebook lead form. And there was a reason why, right? Is because you could easily go to AI and just say, here's my target audience, or here's who I'm trying to target, and I'm setting up this meta ad. I need some help on the demographics. And it will tell you very quickly exactly what ones to put. But the data is showing more and more that consumers don't love it. Okay. Because you're putting the workload on them, more decision-making effort on them. And I'll channel, I'll channel Georgina here. People are already got enough in their brains. They can't turn it off. They don't need another decision to make, because we have found more and more people get to that point and it shuts them down. They're like, oh, geez, that just seems so overwhelming. That just, geez, another thing to do. I would think, how can I make something that mother who's carrying a kid in one hand and got something else in another hand could see it and instantly do something with it? Whenever I get a business card handed to me, I throw it away or I lose it. You as a business owner have some level of control over your lead flow. You have it. You are not relying on other resources constantly to just feed you. You're not relying on referrals. You are not relying on, boy, I hope I get some word of mouth this week. You have the systems set up to drive business to you. There are three reasons. If your ads are not working, there are three kind of things to check. Is one, and this is a little bit what Peg was referring to, is your through play video audience is wrong. Like the people that you've targeted originally are not correct. Okay. Number two, if it's still getting me bad leads, I'm going to increase. If you remember, I said earlier, we did 50% views. I'm going to increase that to like 75% or 100% until I know that it works. Okay. That'd be reason number two. And then reason number three, if it's still not working, is I must not be showing up. My budget must be wrong. I must not be getting enough. I'm just not making a big enough dent in the world of meta. You as a business owner have to be in control of your lead flow. Have to. And you don't all have to be this charismatic, right, Don Markland on there. You don't have to be some performer. Be yourself. People can smell bullshit a mile away. I promise. And your target audience doesn't, and I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but not everybody wants to be around Don Markland. I know that's weird, right? I know that doesn't sound real, okay? But it's true. Your target audience wants to work with you. They do. So be you. Don't be somebody else.
Can I repurpose that?
100%. 100%. We do that all the time. We test 2 or 3 of them and we see which ones actually engage the audience. And I'm going to show you the most simple trick ever, so none of you will ever wonder what to make videos on ever again. A hook is that first 7 seconds at the beginning of your video. It's called a hook because, like in fishing, not that I would know because I can't stand fishing, but like in that environment, like in that activity, the hook is what grabs the attention. If you're in a relationship that looks fine from the outside, but you've not felt genuinely connected to your partner in months, maybe years, and you're exhausted from having the same argument in different packaging every single week, watch this. Then this is called the authority statement. I've spent 10 years helping couples get back to the relationship they thought they had signed up for. And in the next 30 seconds, I will tell you why most couples never do and what the ones who do have in common. I spent 12 years being promoted for what I could do individually. Then I became a VP and realized I had no idea how to lead people who were not like me. The feedback I kept getting made no sense to me until one coach showed me the one thing I was doing in every conversation that was shutting people down. Here's what it was. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a software program called Napster where you could illegally download music. And I don't know if it was illegal at the time. Okay. At the time, it was just cool. Okay. Then it became illegal. Okay. And the reason I'm bringing, it was this weird phenomenon. We would talk, we would all have these mix CDs of cool music. And then we would sit down and we were like, well, what should we download? And none of us could think of anything. Suddenly there was no music in the world. That's a real problem. Okay. Women's lack of, okay, look at this. See all those search tools, those search prompts. Okay. I'm going to take a little screenshot of all of those like that. Okay. And I'm going to put those in my Claude or ChatGPT. But YouTube updates their search algorithms every 72 hours. Okay. Every 72 hours. So do you want to know what search are trending? Those. You're getting all of your topics instantly. Not one of you ever need to be stuck in front of your phone and say, what do I record? Ever again. This isn't me hoping this is a good topic. The data is telling me it's a good topic. Then none of you ever have to be stuck on what to search for ever again. When I want to shoot videos, I just pull that up and I get 10 topics instantly and I go. Then, right, you're not AI, be a human being. Like pay attention and go, okay, that didn't work. Let me try a different pain point until I get the search results of what they're looking for. Fair?
Thanks very much.
Yep.
Because
that is your IT lesson of the day. So your problem statement, like we talked about yesterday, is the number one thing that'll have an impact on your business more than anything. And the second thing is learning how to sell your services to people that are not word of mouth or referrals. Learning that skill, those two things will have a bigger impact on your coaching practice than anything else. You should be able to sell your services so that you don't feel sleazy, skeezy, or gross. Okay. That's important. Also, you as an individual have to start telling yourself today, I love to sell my services. And if you can't start saying that, you will never start selling it. If you say to yourself, I hate sales, you will never sell really well. You won't. You have to embrace it and love it. And remind yourself that these sales give you the lifestyle that you want. If you will follow what I teach, you can actually be you and be amazing at sales. I promise. But it starts with you eliminating that limiting belief of I hate sales. You actually can't even say it. It's not allowed. And you have to start getting rid of it. Okay. Now, all of sales is summed up in the concept that sales is emotion. We make buying decisions based on our emotional, our desire to fulfill emotional needs, all of it. And by the way, selling and coaching are the same exercise. That's how I always connect it in my brain. When you're coaching somebody, all you're doing is trying to get them to buy a new way of thinking. That's it. Then you could be great at sales. I promise. And camping is horrible. It's a horrible thing to do to children. And I don't know if any of you are campers, but don't do that to your family. It's efficiency, baby. Got the same result. Who cares? But the lesson always stuck with me. It is the most important piece of information you can get. The most important. It is so important. I tell coaches, don't move on if you don't have it. Don't move on if you don't get it. It is the why now. Because I'm sure you've been dealing with something for a long time. Weeks, months, years. Something made now change. That why now is everything. Because it's the most freshest emotion. The most. And it changes all of your conversation. My spouse told me if I lose this job again, she's going to leave. Because my boss, said I'm going to get fired because I keep not turning in projects. And I got in a fight with my wife and she said, I don't get this figured out, she's going to leave. Well, that sure changes the call, doesn't it? I keep marriages together. That's what I'm known for. He's the only person I've ever seen do rock as good as me. And I'm the best in the world. I just want everybody to know that. Okay. Because remember, emotion is what sells. Emotion. I want them reliving it. Let's say the numbers make sense. Everything in the program works for you. And we're working together. And in a year from now, I fly all the way to Kenya to celebrate this being the best year of your life. What has happened in that year to make this the best year you've ever had? Between 17 and 20 minutes is usually that process. Not shorter. 17 to 20 minutes to get the rock and the gem. But scene 2 is it's an important scene. It's the scene of listening. Okay. And we didn't always have this scene in the 4-step process. In fact, my wife and I, we've been married for 24 years this June. And I remember once somebody had asked my wife and I, what's the secret to a long marriage? And my wife had said, it's listening. But realistically, the reason why this scene is so important is because one of the most important reasons why people buy coaching and therapy, by the way, because these are lumped together, is because they want to be heard and validated. They're not looking to solve anything. They're looking to be heard and validated. That's the core emotional need. Okay? That is not what I want you to do. I want you to repeat back their words. Now, true story. I have had 6 people in my coaching career that purchased from me at that point in the call. And I hadn't even talked about my services, my program, I had 6 people say, well, let's go. Let's do it. And why? Because they wanted to know, they wanted to be heard and validated. And many of you, and I mean this, you're chasing your opportunities away because you're acting like a salesperson. And if you will just do this part and the problem statement, and then some of these lead things we're talking about, you won't even recognize your practice. You won't. And I'm not trying to fill you full of hyperbole or I got nothing to sell you. I'm not trying to get you to buy a course. I'm just telling you the truth. You won't recognize it. Let's say we found a way to work together. Let's say the numbers made sense and everything was easy. Then in a year from now, I fly out to, and I'll usually say their city. So I'd say I fly out to Miami and we sit down over a plate of noodles, celebrating this being the best year and best decision you've ever made. What has to happen to make this the best year you've ever had? Emotion leads to conversions. I don't care how I get it. I just want emotions. Model. Because there's a couple of studies that show this, that 91% of people that stop a coaching engagement 1 year later go back to every habit and every problem that they had. Okay. 9 out of 10. Okay. 9 out of 10. And so every person, whether they like it or not, has a CRM. Some people, their CRM is a bunch of Post-it notes all over their desk. And that's probably some of you, by the way. Okay. So you have a CRM. Technology will never make your business successful. Okay.
Right.
Technology only exposes bad processes. So if you have a bad process or no process, and you go invest in a CRM or a new automation or a new thing, and you don't have a process already in place for it, all it is going to be an expensive thing that's exposing what you don't have. Build it first and then get the technology to make it faster.
And
For
I'm
your
just
audience and
telling
with their
you,
age group, because they're particularly younger, I would use the exact strategy I talked about and do TikTok ads, right? Hey, people that are preparing for an exam, here's the 3 biggest mistakes they always make. Bang, 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 bang. Or here's the 3 tips to prepare for your exam and improve your score by 10 points. Bang, 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 bang. Okay. There's 2 things I want everybody to remember. First thing is always find the fastest yes. Okay. Sometimes we all have a tendency to create such big opportunities that nobody can ever say yes to it. Like because every company has layers of approval. And so I'm going to create options so that I know I can get a yes right away at a lower level. And then I can have a longer discussion about the full swing on a bigger idea.
Yeah.
I just put again in there a place for y'all to just leave glowing reviews on there. And you can say, and since my wife has been on this call, you can say Don's better than his wife. That's okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you being on. And make sure you're following us online. Tag me online with all your stuff so we can follow and share this. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody. And what you should do is when you get access is make a copy, right? Make a copy of the Excel sheet or make a copy of any of those things. And then that becomes yours. You can manipulate that and do anything you want with it as much as you want with it. Scene 3 is the hero's journey. And scene 4 is offers and closes. We won't spend a lot of time on scene 3. We'll talk about the principles of it. And give some examples, but then scene 4 is where we're going to spend the majority of the time, because that is where many coaches get hung up, because that's where we talk about money, right? That's where we talk about, that's where we ask for money, we ask for the sale, and that's where people have a tendency to get really squirrely and nervous and stressed out and all these things. If you're trying to run a business in 2026 with the way digital marketing works and the way leads come in and the noise and the TikTok and the new Netflix documentaries that we all have to compete against, there are 3 automations you have to have. And I'm going to explain what those 3 are and some easy ways to set them up, right? It's not like you're having team meetings here and you're in charge of all of it. It can be a little daunting at times. And I'll walk through the ideal structure for a coach to run your business and some things that you can do as an owner to protect yourself against the fatigue of the business, the burnout of the business, and the depression of working alone, because that's also a real thing. Okay. And if you notice, as I said yesterday, if I get to this point in the discovery call, if I've done my job correctly, I really haven't talked about myself at all. I haven't talked about me. I haven't talked about my credentials. I haven't talked about why I became a coach. I haven't mentioned a single alphabet after my name. I haven't said ICF or ACC or ECC or XYZ or anything. I haven't said a single thing. All I've done is coach and ask them the why now. It's the rock. Their ultimate emotional need they're trying to fulfill once it's solved. That's the gem. And then I acknowledge that I listen to them. I said, okay, I hear you. I validated. And then because this is exactly what I do. And that is a super powerful statement. That is a super powerful statement. And I hope you're all grabbing that exact statement. You can literally say that one word for word, because that's what they're wanting to hear. Just say you solve this problem. Just, I'm a hole, and if you have a nail, I think we can be friends. I mean, storytelling is innate in humanity. And in some ways, it's what connects us as human beings. But when you tell it in the form of a story, people have a tendency to put themselves in the story automatically. He struggled to make friends like every teenager. He probably struggled with acne like every teenager. He struggled, to date, those people that he was interested in. He struggled, physically, all the things that teenagers struggle with. And having raised 3 teenagers, boy, did I get it. And then along the way, an inciting incident occurred. And now that's a literary device where something occurs, but in his story, it was a radioactive spider bit him. And when that inciting incident occurred, everything started to change. And over time, he started to develop superpowers. And he grows from this Clark Kent little boy teenager into not Spider-Man, but Superman. Sound familiar? Yeah, they're both wearing red and blue. Okay. They both work at a newspaper in New York City, right? Or something like it, New York City or Metropolis. Holy cow. And holy cow. I mean, it's the same freaking story. And if you go study mythology with Hercules, it's the same story. If you go study so many stories throughout human history, you'll see this told again and again and again. You should be a coach. You shouldn't be stuck in this corporate America. Boom, inciting incident. This is one of the reasons I tell coaches to go on as many podcasts as you can. And I don't care how small. I don't care if the podcast has 1 subscriber and that subscriber is that person. Okay. The point of the podcast, yes, it's about exposure and taking advantage of other people's audiences. And there's a huge value in that. But the other part of it, how to close your services and how to talk about selling and getting to the money. And scene 4 is the money scene. It's called offers and closes. You want to use exact word for word at this point. You'll say, after I say, hey, do you have any questions I can talk to you about how easy it is to invest and get started? Great. Because this is my favorite part, because I can work with just about any budget. And I'm going to tell you all something. This is a little secret that you might not know, but people hate salespeople. I was doing outbound call. I was probably calling some of your parents during dinner and selling them membership clubs to Burpee Membership. That's a seed company. For $19.99, I get them 20% discounts also at Home Depot and Olive Garden and Red Lobster, because it's normal. It's biological. And so people, the most infectious thing that they will follow is confidence. That's the thing people follow more than anything, is confidence. And if you have lack of confidence, it doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter how slick it is. If you aren't confident, they're going to look for somebody who is. I don't want to say it's controversial, but I will say that it is different than many models that are normally taught in certification programs. And the clients will usually, this is what the data shows, the client usually starts really strong. And then by session 5, they start to slow down and you start to have to chase those final sessions, because you can't get a renewal until they close it out. And it starts to put a big drain on your cash flow. And what I actively teach is, don't use that model. Use a retainer model. Okay. For those that don't know, a retainer model is a flat monthly investment, regardless of the session counts. And you can structure it based on different call counts. There's a reason why. This sounds a little finance classy, but there are 12 months in a year. but there are 13 4-week periods in a year. And so if I bill my clients I bill them once every 4 weeks automatically, I'm giving myself one extra pay period a year, and I'm doing the same coaching sessions, so I might as well. Is so many times you coaches, get in the way of your own deals. It does not diminish your value to lower your rates. It doesn't, because you're creating the number. There isn't this industry standard that every coach has to make $1,000 an hour. Otherwise, they're considered a cheap coach. There is nothing out there that says that. You do. The only thing that diminishes your value is zero money in your bank account. That is the only thing that diminishes your value. Unless you actually have things on your calendar, find a way to make the deal. Find a way to make it work is what I mean. The hardest part of sales is getting people to make a decision. That's the trick. It is not getting people to spend money, because people spend money every day on stupid things. People spend money on stuff they know they shouldn't every day. Every single day, people do. Okay? Your job is to get them to make a decision. And that's where the break point is because a decision carries with it risk of failure, embarrassment, all of these things. And I learned about 5 years ago, which was 19 years into our marriage, if you do the math, okay, that if I just presented 3 options, okay, well, here's 3 options. We could go to this one, or this one. All of a sudden, my incredible wife would say, oh, okay, cool, let's do that one. Because when the options are so big, everything's overwhelming. Or if I have no options and you only give me one, it's very easy to say no. The key to choosing your 3 options is you choose, think like McDonald's, small, medium, large. Now, for you as the business owner, when you structure that, you don't care if somebody signs up for once a month or once every 4 weeks. Now, it's not great cash flow, right? You can see that it's not great cash flow, but it actually improves your conversion. It's easy to get those people in. I'm going to customize the order in which I present the options based on the person. And this is where I think you're all going to do just fine, because ethically, I'm going to make my recommendation to the one I actually believe that they need. We work in one of 3 ways. And I'm going to walk through those for you, Andy, and I'm going to tell you the one that I think would best fit for you. Does that sound fair? It's my bronze program. My bronze program is where we meet once every 4 weeks. And it usually averages to once a month, but about once a year, we'll do twice in 1 month. Now, let me tell you about my other program. This is my gold program. This is our Lamborghini program. This is the biggest one. This is huge because I think it shows a partnership, shows true partnership for people. Like, hey, I'm not just looking at your cash. I'm just not just looking at your money. I'm looking at what's right for you. If I was looking at my own money, I would say, buy my biggest package every time, no matter what, whether it works for you or not. We've seen incredible results, like I've told you. And people would say that we're known for, that type of transformative work. But I'll be honest, what we're really known for is keeping marriages together. That's what we're known for. There are many times we get on and we realize this person we're selling bronze, right? Like we'll get halfway through the call and realize, no, we're going to recommend the right product for them. And that's how we structure it every time. Always have everything prepared to send them so that they can see it. I want them to see each option. Because there are people in this world, it's not me, but there are people that are very analytical that can't make a decision until they can see it. They can actually, if my wife is on, this is her. She can't make a decision until she can read the whole freaking thing. I do not and I say this to every coach over and over, I do not tell people to make people lock in to engagements. Okay. Sell it. Be confident enough to sell month to month, but not taking the big chunk of money up front expands your audience. I think many of you might not realize, and maybe you do, but I mean, the majority, the amount of people that have $5 or $7 or $10,000 in their bank account or access to it is extremely small. Not small, it's extremely small. And so if that's the only group you're targeting, you're, for whatever reason, intentionally targeting the most extremely small audience out there. Okay. And guess what it's going to force you to do? Be a kick-ass coach. It'll force you to go, geez, maybe I need to look at this. Maybe I do need to change some of the things I'm doing and do better and expand people to get to 6 months of engagement or 8 months or 13 months. I'm actively pushing coaches to always have a group. Okay. Always have a group by having these options and a group, it gives you downsells. When somebody's like, hey, I don't need 4 weeks anymore. Great. Let's do once a month. Great. Let's go to group. Great. Let's do this. Like, it gives you so many options to hold people for so long.
Yeah.
And then when they want to jump back up and they say, hey, I've got something coming up. Can we go for 4 weeks? Can we do this? Can we do this? You jump right into it. The answer to all your customization questions is always forever yes. Find the way to make the deal. Find the yes. Don't get in your own way because, I can't make that work. You can make it work. I had a client that I had calls with at 4:30 in the morning every Saturday morning for 3 years. He was a doctor. It was the only time because he walked his dog. Right? This is called the quick wins principle. The quick wins principle is in the first 30 days, you have to have an aha breakthrough of some sort, no matter what. No matter what. You have to have a quick win in the first 30 days, or you risk losing the client. You risk losing them. And so right there between 4 or 5 months, I want another aha breakthrough. I want them to be like, holy crap, what was that? And then we do it again between 9 and 10 months. This is one of the things that we also do in our company. We call it the red, yellow, green meeting.
I don't have a question, but I just want to know that when I started working with Don, I use packages. I don't anymore. I use month to month. It's the best thing I ever did. And Don did not tell me to say this. It is so much of a better technique.
But the idea of saying it 4 to 5 months, if they're not at that place of breakthrough, that I have to make it happen. Now it feels like I'm performing and not just being a coach.
And the coach is the employee of your business, not the owner.
I see where
of
you're
your
going.
business. They are paying you to help them with their breakthrough. And I know coaching certification schools say, well, you can't get people to get a breakthrough unless they want to learn. Okay. That's true. But if they've hired you, they're saying, I can't do it. So you're going to have to figure it. If that means you got to pound me with a hammer, okay? Your job is to help me get the breakthrough. That's what I'm paying you to do. Believe me, when you get a strong enough client base, there's a great feeling of firing people. I've done that. And I've said, you know what? We're going to end this engagement. Every business owner deals with it. When a business has no cash flow, this is true with coaches as it is with every business in the world. When you have no cash flow, you have to make very short-term, drastic decisions that are not good decisions. Like low on cash flow, you make dumb decisions. And so create cash flow. But remember this principle of no discounts are free. So when somebody says, well, it's outside of my budget, then this has to go in the the psychological concept of nobody likes to be a charity case. Okay. Nobody wants to feel like they're getting charity. They want to feel like they've earned it. So no discounts are free. You don't just give it. You make them earn it. Remember, a testimonial, anyone that has really interacted with your business at any point can give you a testimonial, not just people that concluded at the very end. Remember, the vast majority, I'm talking high 90% of people, will not sign right there over the phone because they just met you. If you act now, or I've only got 3 spots open this month, so you better hurry, and all this kind of stuff that people hate. And so I don't do any of that. We all say, great, I think you should talk to somebody. How can I make that conversation easier? What can I do to make that conversation? Do you want to do it together? And then this is the part I want everybody to remember is you don't get off the call without the next call scheduled. Oh, this is your 4th tattoo to get, but you don't get off the call without the next call scheduled. Not every human being now lives and dies by this little device here. This is an iPhone. You never get off the phone, never get off the call without the next call scheduled. Principle number 1 is speed. The faster you respond to a lead, the more likely you are to close them. This isn't an opinion. This is research. After a day, it drops like unbelievably. And if your first outreach is over 48 hours, it's basically not a lead anymore. The person has moved on to something else. I have a relationship with the problem that you have. But your first automation of anything that you build is when I receive a lead, how can I have an email and ideally a text respond within 1 minute or less to said lead with some level of personalization? Says their name, says maybe some things that they might have said in the form or things about them, something, because that gives me both factors, personalization and speed. Because if you do not have some level of automation set up with speed to lead, you are married to your phone constantly. Because what if a lead comes through? What if you go to dinner? What if you go on vacation? What if you go on a hike? What if you go, all these things, and a lead comes through? Who's going to respond? You have to. And if you wait an hour or if you wait a day, it's as good as cold and dead. You've become married to all you have is an expensive job, right? An expensive job that doesn't pay very well. Okay. Which you would quit in a heartbeat. Okay. If you're being serious. That's why you want that automation in place so badly. Now, truth be told, only 30% of people actually listen to voicemails anymore. Okay. I want you to think about this. So you also want in there, in your little voicemail that you leave, the phone number that you want them to call you back on, because there's a very high callback rate when people miss a call. And so don't put your narratives into your customers' heads. Let the data tell you the truth. The other thing to remember is you're competing not against other coaches. You're not competing against other opportunities. You're competing against TikTok, and Netflix, and stress, kids, and soccer practice. And that's what you're competing against. You're competing against noise. And it takes a lot of effort to get through the noise. It does. And it's just the truth. And that's because I realized I'm not competing against other competitors. I'm competing against noise. People are busy. People have stuff that comes up. And so I need to have grace with that. And I'm not going to let their busy lives distract me from getting on their schedule. I won't allow that. Your first step in any type of cold outreach is just find engagement. Just connect with them and start conversing. It's been a long time since I went on a blind date or something like that. I'm married 24 years. But some of you, if you can remember going on a first date, if any of you, if you can remember that, okay, when you went on a first date with somebody, you had to learn each other who you were before you could say, hey, like, I think I'm going to kiss you now. You didn't show up and just like lean in. Okay. That would have been weird. Okay. It might have led to a slap. Okay. So I'm not going to pitch anybody on a cold outreach until I've established a relationship. But I would tell people don't sweat the small stuff on people unsubscribing or saying don't text me anymore or blocking or whatever, because the fish is, there's a lot of fish in the sea and it occurs, right? Okay. So people are who they are. Okay, people are who they are. Now, when you're looking at this 30 touch point cadence and you're building it out, variety is everything. Repetitive behaviors, it's easy for us to become numb to them and ignore them very quickly. If somebody is calling us same time, same number, all the time, very quickly, it's easy for us to be like, oh, here's that number again, and just screen it and become numb to it. But when we use variety, when we mix it up, when it's never the same, they're always on their toes. One time we were in the process of closing a deal, and this was with a big business, and we took the Titanic poster. This is probably not the best example, but we took the Titanic poster, the one with Jack and Rose on the front of the ship. I know you all know what I'm talking about. And so we put their face over Rose and my face over Jack's. And I was like, this is us. It's a little tip on sending people selfie videos. The more posed they are, the less effective they are. If you're creating these perfect Instagram reel photos or videos, selfie videos, they don't land. They're not good. They'll smell the BS. Jeez, I don't need another performative person. But if you're just authentic, and I don't mean to use silly coach terminology of being your true self and all that stuff, but if you're just authentic to that, you'd be surprised how well that resonates. Just sending those things. Speed to lead, ringless voicemail, and a long-term nurture that protects you on all fronts, right? From a military terminology, you'd be protected against all of your flanks. You'd be protected. That's why those are the three most important. What should the schedule be like to run this business? How do I run this business? There's nothing more frustrating than to generate leads for your business and lots of leads to just not sell them, right? That can be extremely expensive and frustrating, because freedom is not the absence of discipline. Freedom is the result of discipline applied consistently over time. The coach with no structure does not have freedom. They have chaos. And chaos, when you marry that or mix that with your business and your income, that is not freedom. That is stress. The concept that the most successful creative professionals, athletes, entrepreneurs, business executives, the most successful ones are defined by their routines and schedules, not despite of them. They're defined by it. So when you wake up without a plan, or you spend your best, of your cognitive energy deciding what to do first, rather than following the specific plan, when it gets to doing hard things, like maybe making sales calls or doing some outreach or having a sales conversation, at 10 a.m., your best energy, the energy you need to do those hard activities, they're gone. You've spent it on decisions that a calendar and a schedule should have already made for you. So I don't want to harp on this too much, but just a structure doesn't restrict you. It protects your best energy activities that require it most. And decision fatigue is a very real thing. It's a very real thing. Regardless of the mood or the motivation or how the previous day went, anchors create predictability in your business. And predictability creates momentum, and momentum is everything. I did not understand this for a long time. But in running a coaching practice, especially when you're solo and alone, you need to put in your schedule every day time where you, I don't know, whether you walk outside, take a break, exercise, do something that is not work, something that is not pouring into somebody else. Okay. You have to. You can set huge goals, but you will always fall to the level of your systems. And if you build a system that makes showing up the path of least resistance, you're going to win. Some people are not morning people. So don't feel like you've got to do Don Markland routines to win. You just need to do your routine to win. That wasn't the point. Okay. It was the activity that led to, I mean, I don't know what was exactly, I don't know which ones actually led to the contacts. I know after 3 p.m. in the afternoon, because I get up at 4, I'm not very effective after 3. You don't believe me? Ask my wife. She'll be like, and ask my kids. They're like, yeah, he loves to brag about getting up at 4, but then he's a waste after 3 in the afternoon. So who does it really help? And guess what it was called on my calendar? Accountability Now weekly marketing meeting. It was blocked red. Must attend. Could you imagine being in corporate America and they show up to a meeting and somebody says, oh, well, I didn't actually do that work. I was waiting to do that during the meeting. That person would have got their ass kicked right there. They would have said, what are you talking about? You do the work during the week and you show up to the meeting to report on what you did. I have to clock out as the owner, and now I'm on-air talent. Like right now, I am not the owner and CEO of Accountability Now. I'm on-air talent. I've clocked in. I'm an employee. You want to look at each paid campaign individually, and you do not want to compare campaigns. This is a trap everyone falls into. Like if you end up one day having a campaign from Meta Ads, and maybe you have another one from Google, and maybe you have a little one from Reddit or Substack ads. They will all perform differently. They will all do differently. And they shouldn't all do the same. They should all do well in accordance to their channel. Pipeline is a big fancy sales term, but it just means opportunities that maybe you've sent them a contract. Anytime you've had a sales call with people, they would be somebody in my pipeline, right? People that I'm working to close anytime. But you and I all know sometimes you just need ideas back to get your brain running, right? You just need a brainstorm partner, and you have one at your disposal to do that. Your big rocks are in place. You will fill up everything else with coaching. You will fill it up with content. You will fill it up with blogs. You will fill it up with insert noise. I promise you will fill it up. I have no doubt about it. But if you will put the rocks there and you guard them and you communicate it to your family, you communicate it to your support group around you, human beings, for many respects, are not wired to operate in isolation under sustained pressure. Right? We're wired for tribes. We're wired for tribes. We're wired for feedback loops. We're wired for shared struggle, for collective experiences. Just do be in a peer group with other coaches, because there's power in the collective. And I don't think I'm saying anything you don't already know. But the depression of isolation is real. I've always found it strange when I met coaches that didn't have coaches themselves, right? Because they're selling the Kool-Aid, but then they're like, but I don't drink that stuff. That's not for me. And there were multiple times over the last few years where we've had weeks where we lost 40,000 a monthly recurring revenue, 47,000 a monthly recurring revenue, just crazy amounts of losses in a few days period. You know what was great to have is a coach at that time. Be like, hey, I don't know if I'm doing this right. this is so stressful. And those things will help. And it comes down to this word that this is a Markland word that we use a lot in our family, but we call it be relentless. Be relentless. And have relentless expectations. But there's a caveat with that. Don't have relentless expectations on others. Don't have relentless expectations on people you're with. You have relentless expectations on yourself. That's the mindset difference.